Let's face it, everybody, rejection sucks. We've all been through many stages of rejection, whether we are trying to ask someone out and they say no, or whether we're applying for a job and they say no, or whether we're trying to pitch an idea or a product to someone and they say no. How people choose to handle rejection is entirely up to them. And some people take rejection differently than others. Some people just take it with a grain of salt. Other people look at it from a positive perspective and say to themselves, oh well, something better is going to come along my way. Other people are extremely hurt by rejection and take it to heart and allow it to affect their self-esteem or their personality or their mood. There is an intense emotional response to rejection that's called Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria. Now, RDS can be very common in typical people, but it is also very common in autistic individuals as well. And that's something that I want to address in this video. Hey guys, it's Wehrli. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who do not know me, I am an autistic individual and I'm here to share with you my hands-on experience about autism and help educate and inspire you about autism as well. If you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon so that you don't miss out on any of the latest updates from me. And now, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into the topic. So previously, I mentioned that rejection sensitive dysphoria is an emotional response to rejection, and that it's very common in autistic individuals. Now, why do I feel the need to address this? Because there's going to be many instances where a person will have to say no to an autistic person, and they need to be mindful about how they go about doing that. I'm not in any ways telling people that they need to always say yes to an autistic person, okay? Everybody is within their prerogative to say no. But a certain type of way of how you can say no to an autistic person can deeply affect them. And I want to kind of go into detail about what are some signs of RDS. How has RDS affected me? Well, to give a bit of a backstory about me, I always struggled making friends when I was in high school. I was often rejected by peers. Oftentimes when I tried out for something, I was rejected from it, like plays, for instance. Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to be an actor, and I always wanted to perform. And I would just often fantasize about myself being in the movies, like Star Wars, for instance. As some of you can probably see, I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt. But as a kid, I would always run around the room, take my two hands, put them together as if I was wielding a lightsaber, and then swing it in action. And I would also shake my hand like a gun and mimic the sound effects from Star Wars. Whatever I could do to bring my fantasy to life. And becoming an actor would give me an opportunity to even further bring my fantasy to life. So when I'm out auditioning for a play or an opportunity to perform my fantasy and I'm rejected, it shatters my dreams of being able to bring my fantasy to life. That's one of the reasons why I'm deeply affected by rejection, but there's also many other ways how I am affected by rejection. Sometimes I take rejection as a response that is directed towards me, and that's not always the case. Rejection isn't always personal. However, oftentimes I do take it personal. If I was to audition for a play and I get rejected, I often tended to think that it was because the director doesn't like me, or the director is ignoring the fact that I am talented. I have similar experiences to when I am trying to ask people out. If I meet a nice girl that I really like and want to get to know her better, I would probably ask her out for like coffee or lunch and she would say no. And I would take that as a sign that she is not interested in me and wants nothing to do with me. But that, again, that could not always be the case. You know, that girl could have a lot of things on her plate and she just simply doesn't have the time to go out for coffee or lunch. Or maybe she got out of a really bad relationship and she doesn't want to date for a while. Who knows? But I would say that those are the two main factors as to why I'm deeply affected by rejection. It's because I have high hopes and expectations, and I tend to think that it's directed towards me. I want to go ahead and give a bit of a story of other autistic kids I've seen, the way they handle rejection. When I got out of high school, I ended up working as a camp counselor for a summer camp called Meadowood Springs. And this was a summer camp for kids with speech, hearing, and other disabilities. And we've had autistic kids attend that summer camp. And there was an older teenager. He was a big kid, and he was on the spectrum. He was very bright, and he was very nice too, and very friendly. But he had temperamental issues if things did not go his way. One instance is during breakfast time, they were serving blueberry pancakes, and by the time he went up to get served, they were all out of blueberry pancakes. When he didn't get a blueberry pancake, he responded by screaming and taking his tray and then throwing it onto the ground. That can be an example of how an autistic person experiences rejection sensitive dysphoria. And the reason why he experienced that, in my opinion, is because he was so excited about getting a blueberry pancake, and he had high hopes and expectations, and they were not met. And the second is because he felt like the cooking staff was personally made sure that he did not get a blueberry pancake, and that made him feel discriminated against and made him feel singled out. And yes, rejection sensitive dysphoria can occur when an autistic person does not get their way. And I believe that one of the reasons why that does happen is because of how autistic people are not used to change. See, when an autistic person has something built up in their mind that they are leaning towards and looking forward to experiencing in the future, and then all of a sudden that just does not happen, that's a big change for them. It's a big, unexpected change for them. And they can't help but react to that in a sensitive manner. People with autism have a really hard time coping with their feelings. It's not easy for them to just flip off their emotions like a light switch. When they are so built up and overwhelmed with emotions, it's hard for them to contain themselves, and that's why you'll often see autistic people running about screaming or throwing tantrums or hitting people. That's their way of stimming, and stimming is an autistic person's way of coping with a situation that he's uncomfortable with. Now, why do autistic people have in their minds that when they experience rejection, it's being directed towards them, that it's personally against them? It may very well be because they have experienced that in their childhood. In one of my videos, Autism and Masking, I talked about trauma within autistic people. Autistic people experience trauma different than neurotypicals do. One simple conversation can have a huge impact on an autistic person. Some of us were taught that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And that's just so untrue, because words can do so much damage to a person, especially an autistic person. And let's give an example of myself about how I was often rejected for personal reasons towards me. When I was in high school, I would often try to join in groups or socialize with others or hang out with others, and they would say, "No, you're too stupid. No, we don't want you." When that happens over and over again, it can really cut deep and make me feel more and more discouraged and less good about myself. And I experienced it so much that it came to a point where anytime I was rejected, it would trigger my past thoughts of me being rejected for personal reasons directed towards me. And that's why I get so worked up, because I'm reliving the past of when I was rejected by peers for personal reasons towards me. And like I said, that isn't always the case. There can be many reasons why people have rejected me certain opportunities, but it can be hard for me to not take it to heart because of the type of personal rejections I received when I was younger. Now, as I'm making this video, do I want you to refrain from ever saying no to an autistic person? No. Am I telling you that you should let them get their way all the time? No. If you have any authority over an autistic person, like being their parent or their teacher or their supervisor at work, by all means, if they are continuously doing things that they should not be doing, or they are getting out of hand, definitely by all means discipline them. Don't let them get away with it. If an autistic person were to ask you to hang out with them and you've got other plans, don't be afraid to say no. Or if an autistic person were to ask you out and he's not your type, don't be afraid to say no. I do believe that rejection can be handled in a specific way so that it's not as hurtful and it doesn't seem like that it's personally being directed towards the autistic person. How can you make the rejection less hurtful towards an autistic person? One is that I would make sure that you are fully aware of how you carry your tone of voice towards them. If you were to scream no at them, that can really shut them down, and that can automatically put them in the fight, flight, or freeze mode. And when they come out of that mode, they're going to get very resentful towards you. I would also be careful with how you word the rejection. Don't nitpick certain things about the autistic individual, like, no, I'm not interested because you're ugly. No, I'm not interested because you're stupid. No, I'm not interested because you can't do anything right. You really want to refrain from personal comments like that about the person you're rejecting. Other ways how you can politely word it is, I appreciate that, but now is not a good time. Thank you for the invite, but I've got things going on with my family. I appreciate the invite, but I have a significant other and I don't know how he would feel if I was to hang out with another guy. I appreciate the invite, but I just got out of a really bad relationship and I just need some time for myself. Try to assure them that it has nothing to do with them. Like the kid who didn't get a blueberry pancake, the staff could have said, this has nothing to do with you, okay? We didn't take all the blueberry pancakes away so that you couldn't get one. We just ran out. If we serve blueberry pancakes again, then we'll make sure to save one for you so that you can get one next time. Or if you're going to reject an autistic person on a date. Now, bear in mind, you, by any means, don't owe anyone an explanation when it comes to saying no, okay? And that also includes autistic people. You don't have to explain why you're saying no, especially if it's for personal reasons that you'd rather not disclose. You are free within your rights to just flat out say no. That's why we, as a society, need to help autistic people be more accepting of rejection and not take it as hard. So how can we do that? I think we need to teach them certain methods or certain aspects to look at when it comes to rejection. Autistic people have a bad habit of looking at rejection as a personal attack on them, and we need to redirect their thinking to something else. Why did this person say no to being my friend? Is it because he doesn't like me and thinks I'm stupid? We don't really know the full reason why he said no. He could be having a very bad day, or he could have a lot of baggage on his mind. Why did that woman say no to being my girlfriend? Is it because she thinks I'm stupid and ugly? It's probably because she's not ready to date, or she may already have a boyfriend and she wants to stay faithful to him. She could be going to school or working a job that requires a lot of commitment and makes it hard for her to commit to a relationship. Maybe she got out of a bad relationship and is not ready to date again. It's true that people do not owe autistic people an explanation as to why they are rejecting them, but it would be nice if the autistic person had somebody they can look to help redirect their thinking so that they're not taking the rejection as a personal attack on them. Now, if you're going to reject an autistic person for whatever reason, and you word it as nicely as possible, and you speak it as nicely as possible, and they still get upset about it, you can't really control that. I mean, there's absolutely no guarantee that anything you say or do will not make them upset, because we can't control how people are going to react or respond towards what we say or do. If they still react in an unpleasant way, you can just take that with a grain of salt and not feed into it too much, or don't take it to heart as well. Like if you were to politely reject an autistic person on a date and the autistic person gets defensive towards you and starts, calling you names and stuff, it's just best that you walk away and don't feed into that conversation, because a lot of times people retaliate. They're looking to get even. And if you try to get even with someone, all you're doing is just magnifying the conflict. People are so desperate to get the last word out, and they really should not be trying that. It's very easy to misinterpret things over social media. Somebody could make grammatical errors or typos, or somebody could word their sentences in the wrong way. Autocorrect could probably make words all jumbled up. We also can't see the reaction from another person based on the text that they sent us. We also cannot read the tone that is being carried in a text message that's sent towards us. We can imagine it being said in a specific tone of voice. If you were going to say no to me in a text, I could interpret the tone of that text in many different ways. I could imagine you saying, "No!" Or I could imagine you saying, "No." The problem is with texting is that it's not easy to know which tone it's being said in. Now, it's very easy for people to reject someone through text, because the thing about hiding behind a screen is that you don't have to see or feel the other person's reaction when you reject them. You don't have to worry about feeling guilty. Some people do even, feel guilty or have a hard time saying no through text, and that's why they ghost people. But if you're gonna reject someone, over a text message, then again, you want to be mindful of the words that you're using in your message. I would choose words that sound compassionate towards something. I wouldn't go into an in-depth monologue if you were to reject someone, but just, write your message with care and compassion. Again, I'm not saying you absolutely have to do this, okay? You don't owe anybody an explanation. You're just free to flat out say no. You don't even have to respond to them in a text message too. You can ignore them. That's your right too. It's very easy for autistic people to take something over social media as a personal rejection. Like if I were to send a text to someone and I see that the person has opened and read my text but never responded, I would probably jump to the conclusion that they are deliberately ignoring me. Or if the person did respond but with, like one word or short sentence, I would jump to the conclusion that they're not interested in interacting with me. So again, we need to teach autistic people that that is not always the case. A person could have gotten your message and then opened it up, but they were occupied with other things that interrupted them, and they needed to redirect their focus onto that matter. Or same with replying back to you with one word or a short sentence. Maybe they don't want to keep you hanging, but they can't spend a lot of time interacting with you as well because they've got other things going on. Or maybe the other person just doesn't feel like talking, but that's not because it has anything to do with you. Like myself, for instance, I get like so many messages on TikTok from people asking me questions related to autism or telling me that they're so thankful that they found me and that they're learning so much. And as badly as I want to respond to everybody, I cannot because it is too overwhelming for me. I reach a certain point where I become so overwhelmed that I just don't want to respond to people on social media. And it's nothing personal towards them. Another thing that I wanted to point out too is that an autistic person could go through so many phases of rejection to the point where it now becomes a routine for him. The autistic person may reach a point in their mind thinking that no matter what, they're just going to be rejected. And therefore, they put walls up. When an autistic person puts a wall up, establishing relationships is a lot harder. When they're in that type of a mindset, they will deliberately seek out ways to be rejected or ensure that you reject them. Reason why is because autistic people are very routine oriented. When rejection becomes a routine for them, they're going to want to stick with that routine. An example of what I mean is when I did online dating. I would swipe right on so many girls, some would swipe right back on me, and then we would chat and then, make plans to meet up, and they would either ghost me then or stand me up or end up rejecting me later on. Because that happened so many times, I ended up putting a wall up and started to assume that the next woman was going to do that with me. So when I swiped right on a woman and then she swiped right back on me, I would immediately call her out. I would just open my message with, "I'm not interested in playing games with you, and I'm not interested in being ghosted either." And then that woman would respond with, "Dude, what the heck is your problem?" Sometimes a person could be trying really hard to earn my trust. But because I've got a wall put up and because I've got my rejection mindset wired into me, I may ensure that the person changes his mind and rejects me. I could feed him negative facts about myself like, why would you want to be my friend? I'm stupid. I can't do anything right. You don't want to be friends with someone like me. Oftentimes, when it comes to me forming new relationships with people, I try to make sure that they are a good fit for me, like a good person for me to be around. And sometimes I determine that decision based off of how well they can penetrate my walls. Now, if you are dealing with an autistic person that has a wall up because he's been rejected so many times, you can assure that person that your intentions are different. If he doesn't believe you at first, then just, respect his opinion and give him time to process that, and then maybe just revisit it again. And if he still doesn't believe you, oh well, you tried. Sometimes, because I got a wall up, I would reject people before they had the chance to reject me, because I'm thinking that they're just going to end up ditching me or rejecting me anyways. So therefore, I'm going to do it on them before they get the chance. Or sometimes I would reject them and say, see how that feels? Understand how that feels when you were going to reject me. And again, people would respond to that like as if I was crazy. And it is crazy of me to do that. But we need to be mindful of how we're going to respond to people who give us an attitude. We can try to get the last word out, but doing so would probably magnify the conflict and burn bridges between us. Well, I hope that this video taught you something and that it made sense. I think it's really important to address how RDS can occur in autistic people, because autistic people are known to have a history of rejection for their disability. And so it's important for people to be considerate of autistic people if they're going to reject them from something. And thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please leave them in the comments section and I will do my best to get back to you. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell notification icon, and I will see you all in the next video.